Hello everyone, welcome to my political journalism news channel. The story for today is: Australia will send military equipment and medical supplies to Ukraine to help the country defend itself against invasion while also urging China to stop aiding Russia in its attack on its neighbour. Prime Minister Scott Morrison promised the military and medical help on Friday in a significant expansion in Australian support for Ukraine after Russian forces launched missile attacks across the country and sent tanks rolling across its border. In a separate move to join global pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin and the oligarchs who support him, Mr. Morrison also declared Australian support for a decision to cut Russia out of the SWIFT financial network, the lifeblood of the global banking system. The Australian stance is significant because it comes at a time when European leaders are at odds over whether to take the far-reaching step of removing Russian banks from the SWIFT system, amid fears it would trigger wider disruption to world finance. In his strongest comments on China in recent days, Mr. Morrison said it was unacceptable for the Chinese government to ease trade restrictions on Russia and claimed there was a security pretext for the invasion launched on Thursday. "You don't go and throw a lifeline to Russia in the middle of a period when they are invading another country," Mr. Morrison said during a visit to South Australia on Friday. "That is simply unacceptable, from the reports we have seen, and I would urge all nations to decide that this is not a time to be easing trade restrictions with Russia. We should all be doing the exact opposite." The criticism was a response to a public report that China was lifting restrictions on wheat imports from Russia, part of an agreement reached between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Mr. Putin earlier this month. The deal is likely to help Russian exporters withstand sanctions from the US and European Union. Labour leader Anthony Albanese backed the case for stronger support for Ukraine and action against Russia. "It's important that the entire world act against this aggression and say that it is completely unacceptable. And to do that, we need punitive action against Russia," he said during a visit to Tasmania on Friday. "It's also important that the international community unite against Russian aggression. And that's why China should demonstrate it is serious about global peace and security. And China is doing the exact opposite by actually lifting some of the restrictions that are there on the wheat trade with Russia." Ukraine's charge d'affaires in Canberra, Volodymyr Shalkivsky, welcomed the Australian aid and said any medical supplies, and even simple military equipment, such as body armor and helmets, could help. "I know many people in Ukraine who are willing to fight until the end," he said. "There are patriots who are ready to keep weapons in their hands until Ukraine is free again, because right now it is a question about whether we survive as a free state and independent nation." The additional Australian help for Ukraine is yet to be set out in detail and is expected to be sent through NATO allies in the form of finance, military equipment and medical supplies. Ukrainian community leaders including Stefan Romaniuk, a member of the Ukrainian World Congress, have used their talks with the government this week to ask that Australia send the non-lethal military equipment. With the Ukraine government reporting 137 people had been killed on the first day of war, Mr. Morrison said he wanted to send the additional help in cooperation with NATO forces in neighbouring countries. "We have been working with NATO to ensure that we can provide non-lethal military equipment and medical supplies to support the people of Ukraine," Mr. Morrison said. Australia has been providing cybersecurity training to Ukrainian personnel and has sent medical supplies in previous years, but has repeatedly ruled out sending troops. Mr. Shalkivsky has said several times Ukraine had not requested Australian troops. Australian Strategic Policy Institute analyst Marcus Hellyer said it could take time to be sure about the most useful military supplies for Ukraine and that this would require close consultation to avoid sending things with little practical benefit. "I doubt we're going to be flying RAF aircraft into Ukrainian airspace, all of which falls within the Russian missile umbrella," said Mr. Hellyer, a former defense official and terrorism analyst. You would hope NATO would coordinate the delivery of the supplies. The French government has also promised military supplies to Ukraine, while Canada said earlier this month it would send machine guns, hand pistols, carbines and ammunition. Other NATO members have been cautious, however, about involvement in a conflict with Russia. That is all for today news. Thank you for watching to my channel. Please be sure to leave your comment and subscribe below for more news update.